Hello and welcome to Higher or Lower, brought to you by Spreadex and oddschecker. This is the show where we preview the Premier League and Championship action of the weekend, looking at Spreadex's spread markets, finding the midpoint and saying whether we think the result will be higher or lower. I'm your host, George Elek, and I'm delighted to be joined, as ever, by our two special guests. Well, not that special, because you're here every week. Jack Wright and Dan Worth join me as we play the game and look ahead to the weekend's fixtures. Right, so we're going to kick off this week with Sheffield Wednesday, Sunderland. It's the Friday night football in the Championship. And we're looking at the Supremacy market. For those who haven't watched Higher or Lower before, the Supremacy is one team's margin of victory over the other. So in this sense, even though they are the away team, Sunderland are the favourites. So Sunderland over Sheffield Wednesday. And the midpoint, so the sell, this is the bit in between the sell price and the buy price, is 0.2. It's 0.1 to sell, 0.3 to buy. So therefore, if you were to buy at 0.3 and Sunderland were to win by a solitary goal, you'd win 0.7 of your stake back as winnings. And obviously, if they were to lose, it would be 1.3 and beyond that. Hopefully that explained it well. You guys know exactly what you're doing. You don't need any explanation here. Sunderland over Sheffield Wednesday at 0.2. Are we going higher or lower? I think we're all going to say the same here. 3, 2, 1.
Yes. We are.
Oh, easy.
Easy to oppose Sheffield Wednesday here, isn't it, Jack?
It certainly is. Yeah, got to side with the Black Cats for this one. Started the season with a little bit of a playoff hangover, probably to be expected. Lost the first couple, then got knocked out of the League Cup as well, but roared back, unbeaten run of 5 games, 4 wins in there as well. Bit of a surprise for me that ended last week against Cardiff, but I think Mowbray was fairly philosophical about it, said that the performance was decent. He knows his way around the Championship as well. And he'll want to bounce back here. I think with Sunderland, it's the case that he knows that if they can string 2 or 3 wins together, the odd setback happens, say, in the Championship. So it's how they bounce back from that. I think key piece of business for them was keeping Jack Clarke's been superb this season so far, 5 goals. He's kind of leading the way in most of their attacking metrics so far this season. 21 shots, 9 on target, 19 chances created, and most successful dribbles are 27 as well. So he's flying. And you made the point at the top there, and it's absolutely correct. Wednesday, you just want to oppose them pretty much whoever they're playing this season. They're in disarray pre-season. That's carried on into the campaign. You look at the data behind it as well, and they're just kind of nothing to get positive about. Oldest squad in the Championship at average age of 27.9. Second worst XG per 90, 0.7, and that's related onto the pitch with 5 goals in 8 games. Failed to score in 4 of them. No wins from their first 8 games, 2 points on the board, only 1 clean sheet. It just goes on and on and on, like a terrible run of form. And compounded last week with that 3-0 defeat at Swansea, which I think was a big game, probably a make or break game for Xisco. And I think the Owls fans have had enough now, haven't they? They're obviously a bit unhappy, to say the least, with Chancery. Was the tennis ball protest in the last home game, I think? So
I think that this, especially given your position in Sunderland, where it's going to be a bit of an occasion at Hillsborough, and the way that Sunderland play and their attacking, like relentless attacking standpoint that they approach, their approach under Tony Mowbray means that if Wednesday's form is consistent and they don't turn up here, it could get quite ugly. We've seen Sunderland this season have to again basically play without a striker, with Joe Bellingham playing up front for the most part. They have bought a couple of strikers in, and there's a chance that we might see Nazari Rus in here, who comes in with an incredible goal record from Ukraine, where he scored 14 and 30 last season. For Zoria, I know he's pretty highly thought of, and if he were to come in, you'd have to expect that Sunderland, with that kind of focal point in attack, maybe even more dangerous. They've got just quality running through the side. I think Jack Clarke is one of the informed players in the whole league right now. It's just for Francisco Munoz, who is under pressure, although his interviews suggest that he isn't at all. He seems to be completely unaware or surprised as to why he would be under pressure. The home fans at Hillsborough have shown in the past that they can make the place pretty toxic if they're not happy with what they're seeing. And with sure to be a pretty buoyant, big away support, I do think if Sunderland are able to edge ahead in this one, rather than, I don't know if you watched the Coventry Huddersfield game with Darren Moore taking charge for his first game. Coventry were by far the better side in the first half, but Huddersfield were able to kind of eat their way back in the game and were fully deserving of their point at the end. I can't really see that here. It feels to me like if Sunderland get ahead, we might see Sheffield Wednesday almost go into their shell even more as they struggle to find any kind of fluency. So
I totally agreed on that. I think it's going to be a nervous atmosphere to start with, and probably a toxic one by the end of it. And I was totally agreeing with the fact that you probably don't want there's no worse side really than Sunderland to go there with the players that they've got and the fan base that they've got. Then it could be quite messy.
Yeah, Dan, you're going against, because normally you're the one who, you look at these lines and you see I can get the draw on side.
Yeah.
And I know that looking at the the current standings, Jack has overtaken me, which is why I didn't bring it up at the start. 55% total, now I'm 53. The audience have overtaken you, Dan. They're on 47%, you're on 46%. So it's time for you to wrestle back the initiative here, and you're changing your tactic.
I think so. Well, I think it bodes well that I'm on your side then here, for both of you. But I did try initially to argue the other side, and in my search on WhoScored.com for an argument for Sheffield Wednesday, I found they have no statistically significant strengths. So I quickly ripped that up, and now I'm higher with you guys. But I think both of your arguments are pretty thorough, so I don't really have too much to add.
Yeah, perfect. Right, we're all in agreement there then that we are getting with Sunderland higher there with a midpoint of 0.2. On to the Premier League now. It is Aston Villa against Brighton. Should be a cracking game for the neutral, this one. Villa are favourites at home. The midpoint here is 0.2. Let's see if Dan sticks to his guns with his new approach. 0.2, higher or lower, 3, 2, 1. Yeah, shock. Dan, hand over to you so you can justify what we all knew you were going to do.
Yeah, there's no surprises here. I've gone higher. Villa have won their last 9 at home in the league, which is great, and have a surprising to me, very good record against Brighton. I know Jack said off air that he's got a nice stat that goes back to 1980, but I'm going to jump in first with mine from 1980. Villa have only been beaten once by Brighton since 1980, and that's, you might think, they may not have played each other, but they've played each other 16 times in that period. So I'm pretty happy with Villa here. Obviously, both teams are well in the thick of it now with thick fixtures. Both knocked out in the Carabao Cup and European stuff. But I don't think that's going to stop Villa here. I think they rotated quite nicely, not nicely for them because they lost, but for their first 11 to come out strong here against Brighton, I'm on their side.
Jack?
Yeah, strong home record, 100% home record. Said that run of 9 games going back was concerning, but Brighton are Brighton at the moment, and that's the thing you can say about them. They've also got a 100% away record, and very impressive one at that this season with the 3-1 win at Man United, 4-1 win against Wolves. Obviously also had their Euro blip as well, but that come from behind win against Bournemouth got them back on track. They've had a stellar start to the season. In the league, certainly. De Zerbi labelled it as one of their worst performances of the season, which I think is worst performances under him, which I think says exactly where he set the bar and where they've set the bar as far as their performance are concerned. Villa favourites going lower gives us the chance to get the draw on side here. Brighton very much. I think these two sides just played each other. It should be an absolute cracker, as George said at the top of that there. Brighton are up to third in the table. It's the first non-Big Six club to win 5 of their opening 6 Premier League games since 2005, 2006, and that last side was Charlton Athletic.
Wow.
That's me done.
What year was that?
2005, 2006.
Sorry, you said. I wonder if that was 1980, 1981, but no. We'll get to that later, will we? I agree. I wonder if Villa are going to kind of take the role of flat track bullies this season, which kind of makes sense given Unai Emery's record in certain cup competitions in the past. Like if you look at their campaign so far, they've been excellent in the league, but their defeats have come against Newcastle on opening day where they were beaten 5-1, and against Liverpool where they went to Anfield and were beaten 3-0. And even the Chelsea game, a massive win for them at Stamford Bridge, it was thanks to some big Emi Martinez saves when it was 11-11, and then obviously the red card changed that as well. So I do think Brighton are a serious side this season, and despite being knocked out of the Carabao Cup in midweek, or both teams were on Wednesday night, I do think, having the draw on side here, I think this would be a massive win if Villa are able to go over the line. So I'm happy to take the draw as well.
I think you made a stat a couple of shows ago about Brighton's bounce back.
Yes.
So that one applies here, obviously. Yeah, that's quite right.
Yeah, let's hope that carries on. Same game now, total goals. As you would expect in a game between two sides where goals seem to be following them around at the moment. It is a high line. 3.45 is the midpoint. So it's 3.35 to sell, 3.55 to buy. So 4 or higher is the higher, 3 or fewer is the lower. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah,
I thought this seems to happen quite a lot.
It does, this one, yeah. Yeah, I have tried this one before. Last time we had this market in a Brighton game, which was against Newcastle. Newcastle scuppered that by scoring one of their traditional added-on time goals. But yeah, it's a high line. I'm prepared to take it on, given the fact that I'm getting the 0, 1, 2, and 3 again on this one. This sort of run's going to have to stop at some point in time. That's the thinking behind it. Yep. 2 home games for Villa, both higher, but Palace, the game against Palace saw goals in the 87th, 90 plus 8 and 90 plus 11. So that's fairly unsustainable. So yeah, only 2 of 6 have seen under 3.5, but all of Brighton's seen at least 4 goals. So this is where this is going completely against what I said. But I do want to get them on side. Can I see there being 5, 6 goals? I'm basically taking on the chances of a marginal loss here with the opportunity of getting some more upside on going lower. Villa against Chelsea, said last time out, was 1-0, and it was interesting that Emery did pick up on the fact it was a good defensive display. It's kind of highlighting the fact that he is trying to improve that side of things. The home record that you mentioned a little while ago, Dan, where they've won 9 successive, 6 of those have come accompanied by a clean sheet. So they are showing that they have got that. Yeah. They've only picked up 2 this season so far. So I think Emery will be looking to make sure that that's more of a focus going forward. And I think Brighton are completely on the radar now. I was about saying that over the last probably 12, 18 months, it's been, Brighton are still there, Brighton are still there. They're now there, scoring goals, playing superbly well, going to the places like Old Trafford and doing the business. So teams are going to have to try and find a way of stopping them. Easier said than done, but it's obviously now going to be on the agenda. They are going to have to try and figure out how they can put a stop to the goals when they're playing Brighton the way they play. And you did mention the long history here. This one, not a massive one for historical stats, unless it supports my argument, which this one does. This one's not got a great history of goal. The last 15 league meetings between these two sides have seen less than 4 goals. And you have to go all the way back to 1980-81 season, the one we mentioned there, for the last time that was the case. And as I'm sure our good friends Dan Bardell and Sam Ty will know, that was a 4-1 win for Aston Villa, cancelling out John Gregory's opener for Brighton with goals from Dennis Mortimer, Peter With, Des Bremner and Gary Shaw.
There you go. How you follow that up?
Yeah, fair play. No, I enjoyed that.
Good, I'm glad you did.
I think this line is high, no doubt. And I do kind of hate needing 4 goals to win. But I think this game has got goals in, although the line probably doesn't have too much juice. As you said, you don't think there'll be 5 or 6, to be honest. Neither do I really, but I'm hoping we can get to 4. Brighton have scored at least 3 in 5 of their last 6 in the league, which is providing me with a bit of positivity. And this would have copped in both of Villa's home games so far. So those are my 2 points really as to why I'm going higher.
Great.
Hoping for goals.
It stinks of goals, doesn't it? It does.
Yeah, but you just said lower.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Yeah, I know. Well, I told you why.
I'm going to make this very simple. Aston Villa have played 2 league games at home so far this season. They scored 4 against Everton. They scored 3 against Palace. Brighton have played 2 away league games so far this season. They scored 4 at Wolves. They scored 3 at United. There you go.
Done.
Thanks very much. So I'm hoping for 4 or more, as is Dan. But Jack is going lower.
Yes.
On to probably the game of the weekend, I think, in Tottenham against Liverpool. We are kicking off with first match goal, which we also did for the Spurs game last weekend, where Jack got it right by going lower for the first match goal between Spurs and Arsenal.
Close, wasn't it?
Not that close, though.
Okay. I was trying to make you feel better.
Not that close. I was watching it thinking there's a goal. First match goal here, the midpoint is 30.5. So lower if you think there'll be a goal before the half-hour mark. Higher if you think it will come later. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, I'm learning from my mistakes.
Yeah.
I just, watching that Spurs. I mean, I love watching Spurs now under Postecoglou, and I felt like defensively they definitely grew into the game. But there's no denying that the way that they approach games early on, there's just no caginess at all to their play. Like, they are immediately open, they're immediately on the front foot, they're trying to press the opposition, they're trying to win the ball high and create chances, often at the detriment to their own defensive unit. And given Liverpool's attacking prowess, given the range of options they've got in the final third. Darwin Núñez's ability to constantly find himself in goal-scoring positions. Mohamed Salah, who's already got 7 goal involvements this season. Szoboszlai, who's settled in so well. It feels likely they're probably going to play without that. With McAllister playing as the central midfielder, so not really playing with a genuine holding midfielder. I think against Spurs, given how good they are in transition, could be kind of kamikaze, but maybe in a good way for this. It just seems like if there isn't going to be a goal in the first half an hour here, Dan, it's not going to be because of a lack of chances. It'll be because of poor finishing, and in that way, I want to be on that side of the line. I
completely agree. And so far this season, we've seen, last time we had this market, it copped. When these two sides last met, Liverpool had scored 3 by this line. So that bodes quite nicely. And the average goal times, or average first goal times of these two teams so far in the Prem is 26 minutes. So everything is pointing to lower here. The guys on X also agree with us, 83% of them.
83%.
So,
wow.
Yeah, I really see no reason. Okay, maybe Darwin Núñez is finishing, but no reason why this won't come.
Jack?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, in full agreement, rightly so. I think I used the words 2 high-octane front foot sides last week, and this one certainly applies again, doesn't it? It does seem to echo what we saw against in the North London derby, where the first goal came after 26 minutes. Then crowd are going to be even more pumped. I think ardent Spurs fans would have been very excited by the Tottenham start to the season, but also been thinking, oh no, is our bubble going to burst against our local rivals? And I think they've been very pleased with the fact that they performed very well, as you said, exactly how they played in that one, and also came back from adversity, behind a couple of times, a few decisions going against them as well, and they kept going. And I think Ange Postecoglou cut a calm and composed figure, and that translates through the side. He's got that air of confidence about it, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And is now only the 4th Premier League manager ever to see his side score 2 or more goals in his first 6 games.
Wow.
Carlo Ancelotti.
You can listen to that. Yeah, that's both.
I know, double wow.
Yeah.
Carlo Ancelotti, Pep Guardiola, and Craig Shakespeare.
Of course.
Very good.
The Holy Trinity. Liverpool always going to come on confidence. 5 wins in a row for them in the league now as well. But they do tend to like to concede a goal. So I think we're going to see action at both ends for sure. The Spurs game, home games, actually have seen quite late goals as far as their starting point's concerned. But I think they've got reasons to discount that. Sheffield United set up to be tight, compact defence. That worked that particular game. And the Man United game could have been anything really score-wise, and the XG of 1.63 in the first half alone in that one said that there should have been early goals in it. And say as far as this is concerned, the stat that really stood out for me was Liverpool's all 7 Liverpool games in the Premier League so far this season have gone under this time for the first goal. That average first goal in a Liverpool game this season in the league is 12.3 minutes. It's absolutely incredible. The latest goal being 25 minutes against Newcastle. So all what was said there, I think this looks like a frantic, brilliant, exciting start to the game.
Let's hope so.
Yeah, okay, so we're going to stick with the same game here, and the man form Heung-min Son, who got a brace last time in the North London derby and a hat-trick 2 games before that against Burnley. His goal minutes here are 22 to sell, 25 to buy, so 23.5 is the midpoint here. Higher or lower?
Goal minutes.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, there we go.
Got someone on my side at least.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think Son is probably the most likely goal scorer for Tottenham, but he's scored 5 goals from 2 expected so far this season. It was the same as Solly Marsh. I always think on these kind of markets, after a glut of goals, natural variance will probably take its course. He isn't going to be scoring at the rate he's scored in the last 3 games in terms of goals per minute. And it's quite a high line to the extent that he could, I've said first match goal lower than 30.5. There's a fair chance that Son could score in this game, and still it would be in the first 25 minutes, and I would still be the one coming out in profit. As I said before, I think these are often, it's a seller's market effectively, and I'm happy to go under. Would I sell with my own money because of the potential upside? Possibly not. But if I was to price this up as a fixed odds bet, over under 23.5, I think under would be odds on fab. So that's where I'm going. Dan?
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I obviously changed my tactics last week and went lower on these.
Yeah.
And that worked quite nicely.
I know.
So I'm just leaving all of that behind me and going back to my old ways. Taking this on, like you kind of mentioned it, even in arguing the opposite side. He's in red hot form. He scored half of his tally from last season already this season. And despite you saying it's unsustainable, I think it can go one more, or at least I'm hoping.
One more.
He
One
scored
more and then it'll stop.
One more and then it'll stop. That's fine by me.
Fine.
He scored 4 in his last 5 against Liverpool, and they are one of his favourite sides to play against. I'm hoping he enjoys it again this week, and gets on the score sheet more than once would be great, or just as late on as possible with my buy here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm traditionally a seller in this, or a lower in this market for this type of bet, aren't I? So I've gone against my usual tactic for this one. I think Son looks in great form. He's obviously scored 5 goals in his last 3 appearances. That's coincided with him being put into that central role, which seems to suit him very well. For Harry Kane, we now read James Maddison. They seem to have got a fantastic little partnership going. They've even got the old celebration going on and all that kind of stuff, So they're loving life. Obviously, he was a joint Golden Boot winner a couple of seasons ago, and he's sort of back to that level after a sticky season last season. But I read a lot of stuff on Son over the last 12 months, and the fact he was in that pain, obviously, after the injuries that he had, and that he really struggled last term, and he's now free from that, which kind of showing in his performances so far this season. Obviously scored both goals in the North London derby with 97 minutes as a total, 3 v Burnley, 145 minutes as a total. So those only 2 of the 3 games he's played as a centre forward. So kind of edging down that route. Since the Premier League, since he made his debut in the Premier League in 2015, he's actually outperformed his XG by the most of any other player that's currently in the Premier League, with about 30 goals over his expected goals. So he's a very clinical striker. His 5 Premier League goals this season come from 7 shots on target. And so you're right, 10 in 36 last season. Scored in 8 games, 6 of those featured higher. So realistically, the stats would suggest that you're better to go down on the lower route here. But what convinced me was the fact that he has scored in his last 3 against Liverpool, and this different setup, the feel-good factor, the link with Maddison and the central role were enough ticks in the boxes for me to go and take a chance on higher here.
I will be celebrating if Son scores after 10 minutes and then doesn't score again. 3 more games we're going to cover. Yeah. We're dipping back into the Championship now for a game between Blackburn and Leicester. Leicester, the early pace setters in the Championship. Blackburn, one of the entertainers in the league so far. And that means we have a fairly high line in total goal minutes. So this is the cumulative total minutes that goals are scored in. So if there's 1 goal after 10 minutes, they make up 10. If there are 2 goals and they're both scored in the 90th minute, then it'll make up 180. So 161 is the midpoint here. We're going higher or lower. 3, 2, 1. Right. So this is a good stat for you, stat man. And I've got Ali Maxwell to thank, who WhatsApped to me about 3 days ago. Blackburn have the highest XG for and the highest XG against in September in the whole league. So, and that plays out if you look at their results. We saw in midweek, which doesn't even count into that. They beat Cardiff 5-2. Also the 4-3 defeat at Ipswich, a 3-1 defeat against Sunderland. Like, there are just goals following them around at the moment. Even though the game in midweek, the final goal came after 69 minutes. And with Leicester, their opposition, they are the masters at scoring late goals. We saw them beat Coventry on opening day with a goal, the 2 goals in the 77th and 87th minute. We saw them beat Huddersfield with a goal in the 73rd minute, saw them beat Cardiff with a goal in the 90th minute. For whatever reason, they're a side who often leave it late to get their winner, or, as was the case against Norwich, to get the goal that makes the point safe with a 87th minute winner there. So you've got one team in Leicester who, the way they play is fairly expansive. I think given Blackburn's capability on the break, especially through Sammy Smodics, they should have some joy in trying to basically win the ball high turnovers and create chances that way. With Leicester, they've got so much attacking quality. Jamie Vardy now looks to be have kind of made that starting spot his own, but Mavididi on the left-hand side, Dewsbury Hall, like these are players who are, even though I'm not necessarily convinced by them as of yet as a side, I do think they're a side who, against this Blackburn team, should be able to create chances. So, goals following Blackburn wherever they go. Leicester, a team who score late, I would find it very difficult to envisage a low-scoring game. But Jack, tell me why I'm wrong.
For me, I've gone down the route here that I see this being about Leicester and Leicester controlling the game. And I think that Blackburn could be fearful of Leicester, and given their current form, will look to try and contain. If I get that wrong, then I'm in big trouble.
That would be a big shift away from
it would, yeah.
the Thomason way.
Yes, you're right. 3 defeats in the last 4 games, obviously in the league. Last night I was watching I'd written my notes up already. I was going, this is nice. Oh, wow, 5-2. That's blowing me out of the water. Will I change my mind? No, I'm going to stick to my guns. So I think from what I've seen, watched Leicester in the flesh a couple of weeks ago. Again, very impressive. Looking to control the game. We'll go into that set where they will look to reset when they're not quite getting it right. They've got a very calm and composed goalkeeper in Hermansen, who could play in central midfield quite comfortably by the looks of him. Harry Winks has come in and seems to be the pivotal figure for them in their 82 passes per game, 95.2% passing accuracy, and that was replicated in that Norwich game that you mentioned, where he actually had 83 passes, so pretty much bang on his average, with 100% passing accuracy. Didn't miss one pass. So I think that's how they go. And I mentioned to you, I think it was off air last week, but the comparisons with Leicester and Burnley, I could see, having watched both of them quite close together against the same team, they were very, very similar, and how they created the space and they controlled the game. So that's where I'm going with it. The fact that Leicester have only conceded 5 goals in the Championship, I think they'll be able to blunt this Blackburn attack. And last 5 after those late goals, Coventry on matchday 1 and Cardiff on matchday 3 are the only ones that have seen higher than this goal line. The last 5 have all gone under 161, including the 4-1 win against Southampton, which the goals came early enough for that one to actually yield 156 minutes. So for me, I'm putting my faith in Leicester controlling the game and being the dominant force.
The only man in the country calling Blackburn blunt at the moment, I would say. Dan?
I really don't have anything to add to that. That was very thorough.
I thought it was nonsense.
Fair enough. To be honest, I'm playing the game here more than I am
That's
predicting.
That's what we're here to do.
And I just think 1-6-1
You're just waiting to see
high.
what Jack's doing, and he's just following him in.
You should go with the
well,
Elek
it's just a bit of a coin toss, and now I don't have anything to back either side up. But no, I just think the line's too high. I may live to regret it, but Jack was convincing enough for me to stick with it.
Fair play. 2 more. Nottingham Forest hosting Brentford next up. Got a new market, I think, for this show. Nottingham Forest leading minutes. So the amount of time in the game that Forest are ahead for. 19 is the sell price. The buy price is 22, so 20.5 is the midpoint here. So this would mean if you're going lower, you think that Forest will be ahead for less than 20 minutes, or higher, more than. Right, higher or lower? 3, 2, 1.
All higher. Wow.
I am surprised.
Oh, yeah, I am too.
Dan?
Yeah, I am as well, when Forest have only led for 88 minutes combined this season.
Time that changes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. I think I'm happy to take a punt here, especially after the Everton game against Brentford. That surprised me. So that's kind of changed my views on Brentford a little bit. And I can kind of see Forest getting a goal here and clinging on, which is essentially what we're hoping for, obviously. If they can get an early one and win 1-0, that would be lovely. But also, even though Forest lost to Brentford last time out, this bet still would have won because they still led for 36 minutes on that day. And to be honest, that was enough, really, to convince me to stick the higher paddle up.
Nice. Jack?
Yes, it's been a solid, if unspectacular start. I think from Forest had a pretty tough fixture list to go into this one, and I think Brentford had just had a little bit of a sticky spell. And again, I'm going down the route that Forest are very strong at home. 10th best home record last season. Started with a win and a draw this campaign. We're ahead 46 minutes against Sheffield United, so happy days.
Yep.
Weren't ahead for a minute against Burnley. So which way do we go? But I think with Brentford only winning once this season, so they are just having a little bit of a funk at the moment. I say it started off, opponents ahead for 16 minutes, then 0-0, then 13. The last 2 games have seen the opponents head for 26 and 45. So they are struggling a little bit. I just feel they're not creating too much. 0.52 XG in their last away game, which was at Newcastle, obviously a tough place to go. But that 1.16 XG against Everton and only having 2 shots on target would suggest to me that I think at the City Ground with Forest. They can get their noses in front, even if they can't hold on. But I think that Forest can certainly manage to be ahead for at least 21.5 minutes in this game, and we can cop it. No midweek action for Forest either as well. Probably swung it in their favour.
Yeah, I'm just pretty keen to get against Brentford at the moment. Something seems to be a bit off. They started the season okay with that draw against Spurs and then beating Fulham away from home. But as you said, Jack, they've been behind in their games recently. They've lost their last 3 games in all competitions and they were behind against Bournemouth. So plenty of reason, I think, to be fairly concerned about them. And Forest are operating at a higher level, I would say, right now. So if I think Forest are going to win, then I'm not going to mess around by thinking they're going to win late and the rest of it. I think you've got to stick to your guns.
They tend to score as well, don't they, Forest? I think the first time this season they haven't done was against Manchester City last time out, so we can forgive them that.
Finally, Fulham hosting Chelsea, all West London clash, 2 sides who definitely need a win. Total goals here is the market, 2.7 is the midpoint, so 2.6 to sell, 2.8 to buy. Are we going higher or lower? 3, 2, 1.
Right. Well, just before I get into my points, 80% of Twitter followers agree with both of you.
Oh, really?
So
I'm surprised by that. As in, I'm surprised. Normally, I think the Twitterati normally just go by.
Yeah, I think there's been a lot on Twitter this week, right? Like with stats like Haaland has scored more goals than Chelsea since the start of last season. Leicester have more goals than Chelsea in 2023.
Social media does hate Chelsea.
Yeah. It's quite fun to watch though as a non-Chelsea fan, but yeah. So I said once upon a time on this podcast that I think once Jackson finds his finishing boots, Chelsea will click. He scored last night, but is obviously suspended here. So thanks, Nick. I've gone higher. This bet's copped in 4 of the last 6 between these 2 sides at Craven Cottage. And I think the line feels quite low for a derby, although it is obviously a local derby, but I don't know how...
Is derby the right word?
Yeah, it's something feels off there.
I'd say it's like a West London clash.
Yeah, between 2 friends.
Yeah, well, yeah. Just kind of acquaintances.
Yeah, mate, you're right. I just think it's a low line.
Like Reading Oxford in a couple of weekends. Like, not a rivalry, just old acquaintances re-meeting.
Yeah.
I'll have to sit in the middle when that one.
Swindon are our rivals.
Anyway, I just think it's a very low line. And I basically, Monday night, I'm just hoping that this game brings some sort of excitement to the start of the week and there'll be loads of goals.
Jack?
Last week you were Friday night, you were looking for some fun on a Friday night.
Always looking for fun, that's
What did you get up to last Friday night?
I can't even remember which game was on.
Fun.
I love that you just assume you're watching a game. That's
always,
nothing else on a Friday night.
That's the only thing we can do.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering where the goal's going to come from in this one. Fulham are still trying to find their way post Mitrovic. Nicholas Jackson, as you rightly say, scored last night. Suspended this time. Yeah. Fulham 5 goals in 6. The last 2 league games have only produced 1 goal. And Chelsea's problems, as you've said, are well documented. I think that's fair to say. Not scored in any of the last 3 in the league. Only Luton and Burnley have scored less than them so far this season. But they have only conceded 6. So defensively, not bad at all. Only Man City and Liverpool have conceded fewer goals than them in the Premier League. It's been well documented. 29 league games in 2023 for Chelsea. They scored 24 goals across that time in collecting 29 points. The pain. Oh, we've got to zoom in on that. The pain on your face there. Nobody lower for points collected, and the goals is the main reason why they've struggled so much. So consistently creating chances, but I just don't see where they're going to take it from. Nothing's changed really at this start of the season for me to change my viewpoint on it. The last meeting between these 2 ended 0-0, and there's been 2 or less goals in 3 of the last 4 meetings.
Did you know that Fulham, as a team, have only registered 1 assist in the league this season?
Have they?
Wow. So all of their 4 of their 5 other goals they've scored have just kind of come from ricochets or some other means of scoring a goal. Yeah, I mean, they have. I think Fulham have some serious issues when it comes to creating chances right now, and part of that is because they don't have Mitrovic, who's left a massive hole up front. I think the signing of Rafa Jimenez was a risk, and it's not really paying off right now. His expected goals, his underlying numbers for a striker are incredibly poor. According to Opta, he's averaging 0.12 XG per 90, which is, for a striker, terrible. His highest XG value for a solitary shot this season was 0.12. So he's not getting on the end of any decent chances. For whatever reason, it doesn't feel like Vinicius really gets much of an opportunity to stake his claim. Bobby De Cordova-Reid is probably their biggest goal threat, and that in itself is even though he's a very good player, like that's not in a position that you really want to be in. And when you also add to that the team who have the second best XG from open play figure in the whole of the Premier League is Chelsea, it's very hard for me to see why Fulham are going to be able to create many chances here. Chelsea's finishing woes are much documented. You know, they are the biggest data outlier probably in English football right now in terms of the numbers are much better. Part of that is game state because they're never ahead in games, but at the same time, even though I do think they are going to turn it around soon, given I don't think Fulham are going to score, I have got to go lower here because otherwise I'm basically saying I think Chelsea are going to score 3 or more. So lower is the shout. I think Chelsea should win, but I've been saying that for a year. So let's see. That brings that part of the show to a close. Our selections are all there. Hopefully we can all build upon, or we can't all because we chose different things, but hopefully we'll have good weeks in terms of being correct. And finally we have the game that we always finish the show with. And this time it's total goal minutes. This is where I will read out a game, I will say the value, and then I'll do the next game, and the guys have to say whether the total goal minutes for that game is higher or lower than the previous one. I will start by reading out the values. If the guys are doing very well, Jack went through the card last week. It was one of those where you set the world record, but your world record was immediately beaten by the person you're racing against. I say that's one of those as if that ever happens, which I don't think it does. But we're going to start with the game we just spoke about, Fulham versus Chelsea, where the TGM midpoint is 134. 134.
Okay.
Manchester United versus Palace. Next up. 3, 2, 1. Correct.
Yeah.
144.
Not too sure there.
Everton against Luton.
Ooh.
Jack knows. 3, 2, 1. Correct. 132.
Said the word Everton, that was the giveaway.
Forest versus Brentford. So 132, Everton, Luton. Forest, Brentford.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Oh, someone's going home.
Home.
Dan, get out.
Oh!
Right, see ya.
Right, so that was 126. Jack, I'm not giving you any more clues as you play on your own.
Yeah.
West Ham, Sheffield United. Correct. Bournemouth, Arsenal.
Bournemouth, Arsenal. Yes.
Higher or lower than West Ham, Sheffield United. Correct. Here we go. Can you do it again? Tottenham versus Liverpool.
Oh.
Correct. So you have 3 more to get through.
Come on, you got this.
Villa, Brighton. They're always going to be back to back, those two, aren't they? Correct.
Yes.
Oh, nice.
2 more. Newcastle, Burnley. Correct. Last one. Wolves, Man City.
Oh, the Man City one.
He's done it again.
Yes.
By 1 point
Smashed
as
it.
well.
1 point.
So you've done it again. So both you got the 1 pointers right at the end. So we had West Ham, Sheffield United 153, Bournemouth, Arsenal 164, Spurs, Liverpool 180.5, Villa, Brighton 175.5, Newcastle, Burnley 164, Wolves, Man City 163.
Okay, happy
And
days.
those prices are subject to change. People watching this, maybe by then Wolves will be higher, and then you'll be wrong.
For now, I'm right.
For now, you're right, yeah.
There we go. Thank you very much, guys, as
Thank
ever,
you.
for your input and your tips and your reasoning in this episode of High or Low, brought to you by Spreadex and oddschecker. Make sure you check out Spreadex for all of your spread betting needs ahead of this weekend. We've got loads of football. We have racing at Longchamp with the Arc, and we've also got, of course, the Ryder Cup. Loads of good Ryder Cup markets, so make sure you check out Spreadex for those. Remember that losses can exceed your initial deposit, and there is a new customer offer as well. Bet 10, get 40. So sign up for the offer. The link is in the description below. You bet 10, you get £40 worth of free bets on a range of markets, including total goals, where you can use it for any of those markets we've spoken about in the show today. Check out oddschecker for all your fixed odds needs, comparing the best prices, bookie offers, free bets, and plenty more up on there. And use WhoScored, of course, for all of your stat searching ahead of the weekend's football too. Enjoy the football, and please ensure that you're gambling responsibly. We'll see you again next week.